So, what's the golden rule then? Like, who determines what's right or wrong? Well, I don't think it would hurt to start with values that most of us would agree on and like climb from there to the highest umbrella law that covers the rest of them. Because I definitely believe in a lot of the practical Christian virtues of self sacrificial love and prefer to prioritize matters of love and lifestyle over ideas or religious dogma. So I wrote out several of my core values, and these aren't even in a particular order. I believe in prioritizing people over things or ideas. I believe in looking for the best in people and trying to draw it out of them. I believe in being kind, like being the kind of friend or family member that you'd want to have. And I believe in going out of your way to be kind to other people who bother you most. And I believe in listening more than you speak, especially when you're with the people you disagree with. And I believe in paying attention for ways to help and not just hoping opportunities will land in your lap. And I believe in keeping a steady stream of beauty and wonder in your life. I believe if we focus on the things we all agree on, that'll keep us busy 99% of the time. I believe in respecting authority at least as much as you challenge it. I believe in not speaking confidently about things you don't confidently know about. I believe in staying true to your word, even at your own expense. And yeah, so those are just to name a few things. And if you had to boil everything down to articulate a modern golden rule that just about everyone could agree on, well, the classic like treating others the way you want to be treated isn't really lacking and is the perfect foundation. But if we were to define that a bit more, I think we should treat others in a way that promotes the most human flourishing based on all relevant experience and information. That's maybe the update. And I guess that makes me inherently progressive or whatever you'd call it. Those can be charged terms, but I think we should just update the way we view the world and God and social standards based on new evidence while having a healthy respect for tradition and the past, like where we've come. Some people really trash Christianity without appreciating all the good things it's done in the world. And, why not appreciate where we've come from, but be open to realizing that some traditions that were put in place 2,000 years ago might no longer be relevant or useful. And on the flip side, like I believe in challenging things that seem to suppress human flourishing. Like even if you think your religion or your religious text supports it, because I'd trust my conscience and the compassion bred through experience. Like I'd trust that over my hazy interpretation of a text every time. John Henry Newman, who the famous Roman Catholic cardinal, said that the conscience is the aboriginal vicar of Christ, which is a super complicated way of saying that just if we pay attention to our conscience, it's always told us what's right and wrong if we're honest with ourselves. Just to use one a clear, simple example from the Christian world, but all of my life experience leads me to believe that there's no good reason why women should be barred from leadership or the priesthood. And there are literally 1,000 reasons why including women in roles of leadership might not just be good, but necessary if the church wants to survive and thrive. So if I were in any kind of position of authority to even decide these things, I'd say, I know what the Bible passages say about women in leadership, but I'm just going to trust my gut and experience and say that I'm either missing something or those authors were maybe just mistaken. Like that's a possibility. Like the biblical accounts are made up of people sharing their experience with the divine and recounting it. And I think that's beautiful and insightful and poetic. But those experiences were perceived through flawed human eyes and written down by flawed human hands. And that doesn't bother me at all. Like acknowledging the human element of the Bible makes it so much more interesting and relatable and complex than imagining God's very hand like wrote down this book and then just dropped it out of the sky. I don't know. I think whatever the Spirit of God is, it was channeled through Isaiah when he cried out for the cause of the orphan and the widow, and it was channeled through Esther when she risked her life to stop her people's genocide. It was channeled through Jesus dying on the cross and saying, like, Father, forgive them for they don't know what they do. And it was channeled by Matthew when he wrote down his account of Jesus's life. But I think the Spirit of God was also channeled when the author of the Bhagavad Gita wrote down this powerful story of like doing your duty for the greater good of society, and it was channeled when the Quakers began the modern abolitionist movement, and it was channeled when Martin Luther King Jr. gave his "I Have a Dream" speech, and it's been channeled through Malala Yousafzai, I think is how you say it, her work in educating young girls throughout the world. It's just revolutionized things, and this is an extremely unpopular opinion among a lot of Christians, but I just see no reason why these more modern, divinely inspired experiences and actions and even writings should be seen as different from the writings and experiences and actions of like Ezekiel or Peter or these other biblical accounts. And obviously time is the great judge of a person or movement's actions or ideas, but provided they stand that test of time, then whenever we see love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, kindness, faithfulness, all that kind of stuff, if we see those virtues, like, we should see the Spirit of God. Because if you're part of any Christian tradition, you've probably heard of someone in your camp accusing someone in another camp or denomination of cherry picking what they believe out of the Bible. And I just came to realize that every Christian and denomination is cherry picking what they believe. So why not just pick what genuinely seems to be the most true and the most beautiful and will lead to the most human flourishing? Like, why not take the most generous interpretation of things that seems to objectively bring about the most good? Like, why believe something you don't want to believe in just because you think you should believe in it? Like, I know a lot of guys, emphasis on the term guys, who want to believe that women should hold positions of religious authority but choose not to believe it or support it because of this paradigm they're caught in of wanting to stay true to the Bible and be biblical, as if that's a noble goal. I don't want to go all the way down that rabbit hole, but if you consider yourself a Christian, like, the last thing you should want to be is like live biblically. Like, what does that even mean? That's a terrible idea. Like, which parts of the Bible? Who decides which parts? Like, have you sold all your possessions and given them to the poor? Like, do your women cover their heads when they pray? Do you believe that divorce and remarriage is sinful? Like, these are all New Testament commands that aren't culturally bound. And I don't know, we should aim for what works, not what we think is most historically accurate. Because what are the odds that over the course of 2,000 years, your little Christian group or denomination is the one that has finally found the purest and most original form of Christianity? Why not just have a bit of humility and say, hey, we've organized this group based on our interpretation of the life and teachings of Jesus and are going to try to live according to that, instead of convincing everyone else that their interpretation will send them to hell. Humility goes a long way. And I think over-obsessing about history and philosophy is predominantly a male thing. Like, I have a friend, and she used to say, men often care so much about the love of the truth, but what about the truth of love? And that's always stuck with me. Like, love is the truth, and God is love, and maybe keeping the heart and soul of a movement at the core of your religious group is more important than having the most direct historic lineage. And I say that as someone who tried my damnedest to read all the texts and trace every teaching back to the most original source, and it just doesn't really matter how you look at it. At some point, you just have to take a leap of faith and live in the way that makes the most sense to you. And the hill I've chosen to live and die on is that self-sacrificial love is the only way that humanity progresses, and all of my experience with my wife and my kids and my family and my world has just taught me that that's true and worth living for and even dying for if needed. And even if I can't prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that there's some higher being who's given us this life as an opportunity to see if we'll choose a life of self serving or a life of self-sacrifice. Even if I'm not fully confident of that in my brain, I really am confident of it in my heart. So ironically, here we are full circle and believing in religion because your heart says so. Lol. But again, I'm trying to get at like what could be a universal religion we can all agree on based on our experience, and hopefully approaching it all with a more mature and holistic perspective. This is a clip from my story on why Christianity and atheism didn't work out for me. So if you want to watch the full video, you can click on the link here.